She violently pushed me downstairs on Christmas morning thinking she'd inherit $8 million, whispered she'll never walk again into her phone while I was bleeding, then threw herself a Christmas party as the devoted stepmother. 6 months later, I stood up from my wheelchair during her toast and played the recording, and 200 guests watched her get arrested. Well, let's go back to that Christmas morning that changed everything. My name is Aaliyah Johnson and I'm 24 years old. That December morning started like any other holiday at our sprawling mansion, the kind of house that screams old money and family legacy. The marble staircase gleamed under crystal chandeliers, wrapped presents scattered beneath a 12-foot tree, and the scent of cinnamon rolls wafted from the kitchen. My stepmother Vivian had been living with us for 3 years since marrying my father. She was everything I wasn't: polished, calculating, and obsessed with appearances. At 42, she carried herself like royalty, always dressed to perfection even at breakfast. I should have seen the signs earlier, but grief makes you blind to red flags. My father had passed 6 months prior from a sudden heart attack, leaving behind a substantial inheritance that included real estate investments and the family business worth nearly $8 million. According to his will, everything was mine when I turned 25, just 6 months away. Vivian got a modest monthly allowance and the right to live in the house until I inherited. That morning, I was carrying an armload of presents upstairs to surprise Vivian when she appeared at the top of the staircase. Her smile seemed different, cold and predatory. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. I never saw her hands move until I felt the violent shove against my chest. The presents scattered as I tumbled backward down 20 marble steps, my leg snapping with a sickening crack that echoed through the house. As darkness closed in, I heard her scream for help, the perfect performance of a concerned stepmother. The pain hit me in waves as consciousness returned. I was sprawled at the bottom of the staircase, my right leg twisted at an unnatural angle, warm blood pooling beneath my head. Vivian was already on the phone with 911, her voice trembling with just the right amount of panic. "Please hurry. My stepdaughter fell down the stairs. There's so much blood," she cried into the phone, kneeling beside me with perfectly choreographed concern. But I caught something in her eyes, a flash of satisfaction she couldn't quite hide. Through my haze of pain, memories flooded back. The way she'd been watching me lately, asking subtle questions about my birthday plans, about when exactly I'd gain access to my inheritance. How she'd been meeting privately with lawyers she claimed were handling estate matters. The mysterious phone calls that stopped abruptly when I entered rooms. My father had always called me his golden child. I was supposed to carry on his legacy, expand the family business, maybe even run for office someday like he'd dreamed. "Aaliyah's got that special something," he'd tell his friends. "She's going to change the world." He'd invested everything in my future. The best schools, mentors, opportunities. Now I was lying broken on cold marble, realizing his widow might have just destroyed that future. The paramedics arrived within minutes, their professional voices cutting through Vivian's theatrical sobs. As they stabilized my leg and loaded me onto a stretcher, I managed to whisper, "She pushed me." But my words were lost in the chaos, dismissed as the confused rambling of someone with a head injury. Vivian squeezed my hand as they wheeled me out, leaning close to whisper, "Don't worry, sweetheart. Everything's going to be different now." Recovery was hell. My leg required 2 surgeries and extensive physical therapy. For weeks, doctors weren't sure if I'd walk normally again. Vivian played the devoted stepmother perfectly, visiting daily with flowers and home-cooked meals, posting touching updates on social media about our family's strength during this difficult time. 3 days after my accident, I convinced the nurses I needed to use the bathroom alone. Using my crutches, I painfully made my way down the hospital corridor, planning to call my father's old friend Detective Marcus Webb. I'd known Marcus since childhood. He was the only person who might believe my suspicions about Vivian. But as I passed the family lounge, I heard Vivian's voice through the partially open door. She was on the phone and her tone was completely different from her usual saccharine sweetness. "Regina, I'm telling you, it worked perfectly," she was saying to her sister. My blood turned to ice as I recognized the cold calculation in her voice. "I made it look like an accident. She'll never walk again. The doctors said permanent nerve damage is likely. The inheritance hearing is next month, and with her incapacitated, I can contest the will on grounds of her inability to manage the estate." I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering as she continued. 24 years old and already crippled. Harold's precious golden child won't be running any companies from a wheelchair. I've got lawyers who can argue she needs a conservator, namely me. $8 million, Regina. $8 million that should have been mine from the beginning. Her laughter was like broken glass. You should have seen how perfectly she fell. I've been planning this for months, studying that staircase, calculating the angle. She'll never prove I pushed her, it's her word against mine, and who's going to believe the confused girl with the head injury? My phone was in my trembling hands, recording every damning word. Vivian had just confessed to attempted murder and I had it all on tape. The next morning I called Detective Marcus Webb from my hospital bed, my voice shaking as I played the recording. The silence on his end stretched for what felt like forever. Jesus Christ, Aaliyah, he finally whispered. This woman tried to kill you. Marcus had been my father's best friend since college, a 20-year veteran of the police force with graying temples and kind eyes. He taught me to fish, attended every school play, and walked me down the aisle at my high school graduation when my father was overseas on business. We need to be careful, Marcus warned, settling into the chair beside my bed. Recording someone without consent is legally complicated, but attempted murder trumps wiretapping laws. The problem is building a case that'll stick. She's smart, wealthy, and has already established her narrative. We need more evidence. Over the next week, Marcus quietly began investigating. He discovered Vivian had been researching my inheritance extensively, consulting with multiple lawyers about contesting wills. Her financial records showed she was deeply in debt, credit cards maxed out, unpaid bills mounting. She needed my inheritance desperately. There's something else, Marcus said during one of our clandestine meetings. I pulled the incident reports from that morning. Vivian's story has changed 3 times. First she said you tripped. Then she claimed you were rushing and lost your balance. Finally, she settled on saying you were carrying too many presents and couldn't see where you were going. Meanwhile, Vivian continued her Oscar-worthy performance. She'd arrive each morning with fresh flowers, designer coffee, and updates about our house. Don't worry about anything, sweetheart, she'd coo. I'm handling all the business matters until you're better. The lawyers think it might be best if I take over permanently, given your condition. I played along, pretending to be grateful for her care while secretly working with Marcus to build an ironclad case. We had her confession, her financial motive, and her changing story. Now we needed the perfect moment to spring our trap. 3 months in the hospital gave me plenty of time to plan. While Vivian thought she'd successfully crippled her stepdaughter, I was secretly working with the best physical therapists money could buy. My father had always taught me that patience and strategy win wars, not impulsive reactions. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, my lead therapist, was amazed by my progress. Your nerve damage wasn't as severe as initially thought, she explained during one of our sessions. With intensive therapy you should regain full mobility. It'll take months, maybe a year, but you'll walk again. Don't document that in my official records yet, I requested. I need everyone to believe I'm permanently disabled for a little while longer. Dr. Mitchell raised an eyebrow but agreed to keep my rapid recovery confidential. Meanwhile, Marcus was building our case methodically. He'd recruited Detective Lisa Mendoza from the White Collar Crime Division, a sharp woman in her 30s who specialized in inheritance fraud. Together, they discovered Vivian had been forging my signatures on documents, transferring assets to accounts she controlled. She's been busy, Lisa reported during one of our secret meetings. Medical power of attorney, financial guardianship applications, even preliminary paperwork to have you declared mentally incompetent due to your head injury. She's not just trying to steal your inheritance, she's trying to make you legally helpless. But we had advantages Vivian didn't know about. My father had been paranoid about protecting his wealth, installing hidden cameras throughout the house after a robbery attempt years earlier. The system was controlled by a security company he'd hired, not accessible to anyone without proper authorization. The cameras were rolling that Christmas morning, Marcus informed me with a grim smile. We have footage of the entire staircase incident. It clearly shows her pushing you, then positioning herself to look innocent before calling for help. The net was tightening around Vivian, but I wanted more than just criminal charges. I wanted complete and total justice. Vivian's visits became more frequent as my 25th birthday approached. She'd arrive with legal documents, speaking in that patronizing tone people use with children or invalids. "Now, sweetie, these papers will make everything so much easier for you," she'd explain, spreading contracts across my hospital bed table. "With your condition, managing Daddy's business empire would be overwhelming. I'll handle everything and you'll get a nice monthly allowance to take care of your needs." I pretended to be confused, helpless, playing the role of the brain-damaged victim perfectly. "I don't understand all these big words, Vivian. Are you sure Daddy would want this?" I'd ask in a small voice, watching her eyes light up with triumph. "Oh, sweetheart, your father would want what's best for you. And right now, that means letting someone responsible handle the complicated stuff." She'd pat my hand condescendingly, never noticing the recording device Marcus had hidden in my room. Between her visits, I was working harder than I'd ever worked in my life. Physical therapy sessions stretched for hours. I was relearning to walk, building strength, pushing through pain that sometimes made me scream into my pillow. But every step forward was a step closer to justice. My real breakthrough came 4 months after the accident. I could walk across my hospital room without assistance, though I continued using the wheelchair whenever Vivian or her associates were around. The deception was exhausting but necessary. "She's getting desperate," Marcus observed during one of our meetings. "The inheritance hearing is in 6 weeks and she's pushing harder for those guardianship papers. She knows once you officially inherit, her window of opportunity closes." I smiled, feeling stronger than I had since my father's death. "Then let's give her exactly what she wants. Schedule the hearing. Let her think she's won. I have the perfect Christmas present planned for dear old stepmother." Word of my condition had spread through my father's business circles, and the responses revealed who our real friends were. Most of Daddy's associates sent flowers and empty promises to visit. But some people surprised me with their loyalty. Jennifer Santos, my father's former business partner, appeared at my hospital room one evening with tears in her eyes. "Your father saved my company 15 years ago when I was facing bankruptcy," she said, settling into the visitor's chair. "He believed in me when no one else would. Now I want to return that favor." Jennifer was a powerhouse in the real estate industry, a self-made millionaire with connections throughout the city. She'd noticed Vivian making inquiries about selling some of my father's properties that weren't supposed to be touched until I inherited. "She's been calling my office, claiming to represent your interests," Jennifer explained. "Something felt wrong, so I started digging. Vivian's been meeting with developers discussing liquidating assets to pay for your care. The woman's planning to strip everything valuable before you gain legal control." Another unexpected ally was Thomas Rivera, my father's accountant. A quiet man in his 60s with meticulous attention to detail, Thomas had been tracking irregular financial activities in the estate accounts. "Miss Johnson," he said during a private meeting, "there have been unauthorized withdrawals totaling nearly $200,000. The transactions are cleverly disguised as medical expenses and household maintenance, but the money's going into accounts your stepmother controls." Armed with this new evidence, Marcus and Lisa expanded their investigation. They discovered Vivian had been living far beyond her means for years, accumulating massive debts she'd hidden from my father. The inheritance wasn't just an opportunity for her, it was her only escape from financial ruin. "She's cornered," Lisa explained. "Desperate people do desperate things, which makes her dangerous but also more likely to make mistakes." The pieces of our case were falling into place perfectly. 6 months after my fall, Vivian's mask began slipping more frequently. The strain of maintaining her caring stepmother act while secretly preparing to steal everything was taking its toll. Her perfectly styled hair showed gray roots, her designer clothes hung looser on her frame, and her smile looked increasingly forced. During one particularly tense visit, she snapped when I asked an innocent question about Daddy's business. "For God's sake, Aaliyah, stop asking about things you can't understand anymore," she hissed, then immediately covered her mouth in horror at her outburst. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she stammered, forcing her syrupy tone back. "I'm just under so much stress managing everything. You know I only want what's best for you." But I'd seen the real Vivian underneath, angry, desperate, and barely holding it together. Marcus had been monitoring her communications through legal channels, and the intelligence was disturbing. Vivian had been researching facilities for people with severe cognitive disabilities. essentially planning to have me institutionalized once she gained guardianship. She's not planning to keep you around as a disabled dependent, Marcus revealed during one of our covert meetings. She wants you completely out of the picture. There are emails discussing long-term care facilities in remote locations, places where you'd have no contact with anyone who knew you before. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This woman hadn't just tried to cripple me, she was planning to erase my entire existence, to bury me alive in some institution while she lived lavishly off my inheritance. That night, alone in my hospital room, I called Jennifer Santos. My voice was steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "I need you to help me plan something special for Christmas," I said. "It's time for Vivian to face the consequences of her choices." "What do you need?" Jennifer asked without hesitation. "Access to my trust fund for a very specific purchase, and your guest list for the city's most exclusive Christmas party. We're going to give everyone a holiday story they'll never forget." Planning the perfect revenge required months of careful coordination. While Vivian believed she'd successfully isolated and incapacitated me, I was building a network of allies and preparing for the performance of my lifetime. Jennifer Santos became my secret coordinator, using her business connections to arrange everything I needed while maintaining the illusion that I was helpless in my hospital bed. Through her, I hired the best event photographers in the city, sound engineers, and even a private investigator to document Vivian's activities. The key to my plan was Vivian's own vanity and social climbing ambitions. Every December, she threw an elaborate Christmas party, trying to establish herself as a society hostess. This year's party would be her grandest yet. She'd been planning it for months, inviting judges, politicians, business leaders, and media personalities. She wanted to cement her status as the grieving widow managing her stepdaughter's tragic situation. She sent out over 200 invitations, Jennifer reported. The guest list reads like a who's who of the city's elite. She's hired a 5-star catering company, a string quartet, and even rented additional furniture to transform the mansion into a winter wonderland. Meanwhile, my physical therapy continued in secret. I could now walk without assistance for extended periods, though I still needed the wheelchair for longer distances. My leg would never be quite the same, but I was far from the permanently disabled victim Vivian believed she'd created. Thomas Rivera had been invaluable in documenting Vivian's financial crimes. We now had proof of nearly $300,000 in unauthorized withdrawals, forged signatures, and fraudulent medical claims. The paper trail was overwhelming. "She's been billing your insurance for treatments you never received," Thomas explained. "Physical therapy sessions that never happened, medical equipment that was never delivered, even prescription medications she's been selling online. The fraud is extensive and well documented." Detective Lisa Mendoza had obtained search warrants for Vivian's personal accounts and discovered even more damning evidence. Communications with black market medical suppliers, research into untraceable poisons, and detailed floor plans of our house with the staircase marked for optimal impact angles. She'd been planning this for over a year, Lisa revealed. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was a calculated murder attempt. December arrived with unusual warmth, as if the universe was providing perfect conditions for what I had planned. Vivian's party preparations consumed her completely. She was at the house daily, directing caterers, florists, and decorators with military precision. I'd been discharged from the hospital 2 weeks earlier, officially moving back into the mansion under Vivian's care. She'd converted the ground floor library into my bedroom, claiming the stairs were too dangerous for someone in my condition. The irony wasn't lost on me. Playing the helpless invalid in my own home was torture but necessary. I spent my days in the wheelchair, letting Vivian fuss over me while secretly documenting everything. Hidden cameras that Marcus had installed captured her going through my father's private papers, making phone calls to mysterious contacts, and practicing her devoted stepmother speeches in front of mirrors. "The party is this Saturday," Vivian announced during breakfast, her excitement barely contained. "All the city's most important people will be here. I'm giving a special toast about our family's strength during difficult times and how we're moving forward together." She squeezed my shoulder possessively. "You'll be such an inspiration, sweetheart, showing everyone how bravely you're coping with your limitations." What she didn't know was that Jennifer had been working behind the scenes, ensuring that several key guests would be expecting a very different kind of entertainment. The district attorney, 3 superior court judges, the police commissioner, and half a dozen prominent attorneys had been discreetly informed that they might witness something significant at Vivian's party. Marcus and Lisa had coordinated with the sound engineers to install additional recording equipment throughout the house. Every conversation, every reaction, every moment of what was about to unfold would be documented in crystal clear audio and video. My custom wheelchair had arrived that morning, a sleek, nearly silent model that would allow me to move freely throughout the house without drawing attention. Hidden compartments contained backup recording devices, legal documents, and one very special smartphone loaded with the evidence that would destroy Vivian's life. The trap was set. In 3 days, justice would finally be served. Saturday evening arrived with a crisp winter air that made the mansion's lights sparkle like jewels. Vivian had outdone herself. The house looked like something from a magazine spread, with white roses, golden ribbons, and twinkling lights transforming every room into an elegant winter wonderland. I positioned myself in the living room corner, playing the part of the grateful invalid attending her stepmother's gathering. Guests arrived in waves, luxury cars lined our circular driveway, designer gowns rustled through marble hallways, and the air filled with the murmur of the city's most powerful people networking over champagne and caviar. Vivian floated through the crowd like a queen holding court, accepting condolences about my tragic condition, with perfectly practiced grace. "She's so brave," I heard her telling Judge Patricia Morris. "Despite everything, she insists on being here tonight, supporting our family traditions." District Attorney Robert Mendoza, Detective Lisa's uncle, as it turned out, approached my wheelchair with genuine concern. "How are you holding up, Aaliyah? This must be overwhelming." His presence wasn't coincidental. Lisa had briefed him extensively on our investigation. "I'm managing," I replied softly, playing my role. "Vivian has been taking such good care of everything. I don't know what I'd do without her." The words tasted like poison, but they were necessary for what was coming. As the evening progressed, I watched Vivian work the room with calculated precision. She spoke with the bank president about managing Aaliyah's complex financial needs, discussed long-term care options with Dr. Hamilton from the city's most exclusive medical facility, and even chatted with real estate mogul Patricia Wells about potential property decisions. Every conversation was being recorded by the hidden equipment Marcus had installed. Every lie, every manipulation, every word that revealed her true intentions was being captured for posterity. At 9:30, Vivian moved to the center of the grand foyer, champagne glass raised for her planned toast. The string quartet fell silent, and all eyes turned toward her radiant smile. She had no idea that her perfect evening was about to become her worst nightmare. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vivian called out, her voice carrying beautifully through the marble foyer. "Thank you all for joining our family during this holiday season. It means the world to have such wonderful friends supporting us through challenging times." The crowd gathered around her, champagne glasses glittering under the chandeliers. I positioned my wheelchair strategically near the main speakers, my special smartphone ready in my lap. "As many of you know," Vivian continued, her voice taking on that syrupy tone I'd grown to despise, "our family has faced tremendous trials this year. First losing my beloved husband Harold, and then Aaliyah's tragic accident." She paused dramatically, dabbing at her eyes with a lace handkerchief. "But I want you all to know that love conquers all obstacles. Despite her limitations, despite the challenges ahead, I will always be here for my precious stepdaughter. Together, we're building a future that honors Harold's memory while ensuring Aaliyah receives the care she needs." The room murmured appreciatively. Several guests glanced at me with pity and admiration for Vivian's dedication. Judge Morris nodded approvingly at this display of family loyalty. Vivian raised her champagne glass higher. "So tonight I toast to family, to perseverance, and to the love that binds us together through any storm." 2. I pressed play on my smartphone. Vivian's own voice filled the room through the sound system, crystal clear and unmistakable. "Regina, I'm telling you, it worked perfectly. I made it look like an accident. She'll never walk again." The champagne glass slipped from Vivian's frozen fingers, shattering on the marble floor with a sound like gunshots. Every conversation stopped. Every face turned from her to the speakers, then back to her pale, horrified expression. "The inheritance hearing is next month, and with her incapacitated, I can contest the will on grounds of her inability to manage the estate. Her recorded voice continued relentlessly. $8 million, Regina. $8 million that should have been mine from the beginning. The silence was deafening. 200 of the city's most influential people stood frozen, witnessing the confession of attempted murder. Then I stood up from my wheelchair. The gasp that rippled through the room was audible. Jaws dropped, champagne glasses trembled in shocked hands, and all eyes fixed on me as I walked steadily toward the center of the foyer where Vivian stood paralyzed with terror. "Surprise, stepmother," I said calmly, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room. "I hope you enjoyed your toast because it's the last one you'll ever give as a free woman." Vivian's face cycled through emotions: shock, fear, rage, and finally desperate calculation. "This is insane," she shrieked, her composure completely shattered. "She's clearly had some kind of breakdown. That recording is fake. Anyone can manipulate audio these days." District Attorney Mendoza stepped forward, his expression granite hard. "The recording has been authenticated by our forensic audio specialists, Mrs. Johnson, along with the security footage from your house showing you pushing Miss Johnson down the staircase, the financial fraud evidence, and your written research into murder methods." Detective Lisa Mendoza emerged from the crowd with 2 uniformed officers. "Vivian Michelle Johnson, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." As the handcuffs clicked around Vivian's wrists, she looked around desperately at the assembled guests. "You can't believe this. I raised that ungrateful girl. I devoted my life to her care after the accident." "The accident you caused," I said quietly, stepping closer to her. "The accident you planned for months, hoping to kill me or leave me so damaged that you could steal everything my father worked for. But you forgot something important, Vivian. Daddy always taught me that patience and preparation defeat impulsive greed every time." The crowd parted as the officers led Vivian toward the door. She twisted back to scream at me one last time. "You think you've won? You'll never be rid of me. I'll appeal, I'll fight, You'll serve 15 years for attempted murder," Judge Morris interrupted coldly. "I'll be very interested to preside over your trial, Mrs. Johnson. Very interested indeed." As the police cars pulled away, their red and blue lights reflecting off the Mercedes and BMWs in our driveway, I stood in my father's house, my house, surrounded by witnesses who would ensure this story spread throughout the city by morning. 6 months later, I walked into that courtroom without assistance and watched Vivian receive her 15-year sentence. The inheritance was officially mine, every stolen penny recovered with interest. But the best part? Every Christmas since, I've sent her a card in prison, a photo of me walking, running, dancing, living the life she tried to destroy. Because sometimes karma doesn't come naturally. Sometimes you have to serve it yourself, ice cold and perfectly timed. And let me tell you, it tastes sweeter than any revenge fantasy could ever be. Part of me feels guilty about how this all went down. Am I crazy, or did they really leave me no choice? I could use some outside perspective here.